So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. And when I first picked up both of these phones, I actually faced this dilemma, which one I wanted to use more. And I understand I'm in a position where I could choose between the two. But mostly I bought the Air as an experiment. I thought it was going to be my favorite phone. And I did actually have my main SIM in it for the first couple of weeks, but you probably know by now if you've been watching the channel which one I settled down with, which was the 17 Pro Max. But I still been using this one here and there over the past few months, and I want to talk about which one wins for you. Now let's first talk about price to value ratio. This is the area where I like to talk in the video about the phones you bought here. Did you get good value for the money? Like, are you getting your money's worth? And I think the 17 Pro Max is an absolute yes, mostly because of the battery life. This phone is destroying most of the competition, especially with lithium ion batteries. Now, if you're looking at silicon carbon batteries on some of the Chinese phones, we're not in the same discussion here. Those phones are having much larger batteries these days. But even for a lithium ion battery in here, this one is definitely sitting at the top of the game with a 17 Pro Max. Also, it does have way better camera system than the iPhone Air due to the triple 48 megapixel on the rear. And it does have the same front-facing camera and a larger panel. So generally, you do get your money's worth there. Now, it's a little bit harder to discuss if the value is there for the iPhone Air. I changed my mind about it in a previous video. I talked about why. But generally, I do think it's a little bit overpriced by about $100. At $1,000, I understand you're paying for the innovation and all that. But the single camera is what makes me think this should have been $899, maybe $929 even. So definitely slightly overpriced, I feel like, but still it's a great device. It really is. It's fun to use. It feels like no other iPhone before it. And generally it feels special compared to pretty much every other iPhone that came out this year. And only iPhone Air owners or people that actually have one would actually be able to tell you that. You know, you can see it on camera and be like, nah, single camera, a thin phone, whatever. Yeah, it looks like that on video. But when you actually behold it and use it, you're like, maybe I shouldn't have said that so fast. Because in reality, even somebody like me who's been using these top tier phones for the channel, you know, even I picked this up and I'm like, I don't think I really care too much all the time about a single camera. It just feels that nice in the hand. And the space black looks gorgeous, but it's not doing it as much justice because the other colors do look a little bit thinner on the camera. This one's a little bit darker, but I just like the two-tone shiny camera bar on the space black. And the black is a type of color that over time, it still looks fresh years down the line. That's why I went with that one right there. So let's talk about the design realities here after 3 months. You know, I feel it every day and I still feel it to this day. The iPhone 17 Pro Max is just a thick, heavy brick phone to use. It just is. Doesn't mean it's a problem. Definitely, I enjoy, you know, these bigger display on here, this long battery life. It just seems like a very, very practical choice to have this phone because it doesn't really make a lot of sacrifices. But again, you will get a bit of hand fatigue. You will get a bit of pocket feel. Like you're going to feel this brick in your pocket for sure. And you will feel that thickness. Also, while I do like the unibody aluminum, it tends to slip out of the hand a little bit easy if you're not using a case, and it will dent. So do get a case for this phone if you're worried about, you know, dented aluminum or anything like that, or dropping the device, because this is one of the less grippy phones. There's actually a video where a customer actually dropped the iPhone right in front of Tim Cook, you know, believe it or not, the brand new 17 Pro Max. So that should just go to show this is definitely not the most grippy. Now, when we talk about a design reality over here, this is a totally different story. The iPhone Air is actually super grippy. You would think that because this phone is super thin, oh, that's just going to slip right out of my hand. Absolutely not. The shiny titanium edges give you a lot of grip, actually. And I feel like you could rock this phone more likely without a case without dropping it. It just feels very sturdy, and it's not quite as soft in the corners, nor is it as slippery. So it just you can just grip this really nicely. I actually feel like this is one of the grippiest iPhones I've used in a while without a case, even though it's thin. So definitely enjoy that. They just barely were able to squeeze the camera control button in there and the power button on there. In general, you can kind of rest your finger right there on that camera plateau up there to go ahead and give you even better holding. But generally what this feels like is like a phantom in your, like a ghost in your pocket. You don't even feel it. Like you're like, where's my phone? The only thing that is reassuring is the size. You'll feel this size if you got some small pockets. 6.5, it's still a big phone and it still feels like a nice size. But when you compare this to the iPhone 17 Pro Max day to day, it kind of does feel a little bit small compared to that. But compared to a base iPhone or even an older iPhone with a 6.1, 5.8, this is a big jump. You're going to feel like you have nearly a max phone if you never used one of the recent 6.9 or 6.7 inch phones. So that 6.5 has felt like a nice design change or display change. But generally, this just feels like a super lightweight, thin form factor. And 3 months later, where it really you feel it is just everyday carry. So if something, you just don't like thick, heavy phones, just get the Air. It's just a really good experience if that is your primary thing you're after. Now, when it comes to the display, what's really nice about the iPhone 17 Pro Max is super thin bezels, super bright panel, and also very large panel. You can see it here. The Air is not no small panel, but when it compared to the 17 Pro Max, it's pretty apparent that, you know, this phone right here has maybe the thinner bezels, but generally they're the same brightness, same overall resolution. So most folks are not going to be able to tell a real difference in actual quality. But size is usable difference. I mean, if you are watching a ton of media, doing a ton of things on your phone, you know, the Air is not going to feel small, but the Max is going to give you that just that little bit more spaciousness if it's something that you do tend to care about. Both of them do have the same refresh rate, and both of them do have the ability to bring the display down for one-handed use. But the thing is the Air is definitely an easier to use one-hand phone. So if you want to use this one hand, again, with the better grip, with the smaller size, it feels a lot more comfortable to hold in this respect. As a matter of fact, I always think about my 11 Pro Max days with this phone. It was one of the better sweet spot sizes, and I feel like you could do some hand gymnastics with this and still be able to get a one-handed experience going on here. Whereas with the iPhone 17 Pro Max, it gets a little shaky with that. When you try to use the pinky to grip the phone down there, it definitely gets a little shaky, so it makes me nervous. I tend to use this holding on one side and then using my finger like that. Or with a case, I will grip it one-handed because I have a case on it. But when it's by itself, it's a two-handed phone. And for a lot of people, it's simply just too big, I think, for a lot of people. But for those of you who like your large, beastly phones, it's definitely still the one to pick. Now, while on paper, they both do have the same A19 Pro chips, both clocked at the same CPU speed. Both of them do have 12 gigs of RAM. The reality is the 17 Pro Max is a more powerful phone due to the thermal efficiency. That unibody construction and their vapor chamber inclusion in this phone has actually been something I've noticed. The previous iPhone 15 Pros and Pro Maxes, these devices right here tended to get quite warm, and Apple knew about that. They improved a little bit on the 16 Pro Max, but they really took it to town on the newer 17 Pro series. And over the past few months, I definitely noticed this. I've never felt this phone get warm except for the very first day when I started up, booted up, and I was like downloading all my stuff. You know, it was transferring everything. So it got a little bit warm, but nowhere near any concern. And that was on a charger as well. Now, the iPhone Air, when I push this phone, I feel heat up in this area. This one's like your average iPhone where you feel a little bit of heat. It doesn't get too hot. But this actually is more efficient and doesn't get as warm as the iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max. So they did a good job even with this one. And while it does have titanium, it still doesn't get incredibly hot. So iPhone's Air, pretty good in thermals, but in terms of the performance, it's going to go to the 17 Pro Max. The reality is, though, in the day-to-day, when I'm launching applications using the phones, I only really noticed that the iPhone 17 Pro Max will do better when I'm playing games. That's it. It'll just stay a little bit less throttling over a longer session. But other than that, the Air feels like it's performing exactly the same. I will state, though, that I did find the Air a couple times, a few apps stuttered a little bit more. I don't know why. Maybe because it throttles when it gets too hot. I don't know. Or you're using it a lot. I just found that to stutter a couple times more than the Max. But I mean, you really got to do some complex tasks. You really got to push them to really notice. So I'm not really too concerned about recommending the Air for performance if you really want this phone, but the Max is the one for the long haul if you really want the best performance as the years go on and the updates come because of that vapor chamber and that thermal construction. Now let's talk about the battery life. The truth of using these two over 3 months is the iPhone Air is not as bad as you think. This phone actually does get a full day of use for a lot of people. Heavier users, you're probably going to charge this thing around 8 or 9 o'clock at night, but the actual phone itself tends to last pretty good. You know, some of the older, smaller iPhones, I'm thinking like iPhone 10, 10s, those phones actually had worse battery life than this in my experience. So when people complain about the battery here, I'm a little bit like thinking like, well, you know, some of those older iPhones had worse and you still bought those. So the deal is this. It's not an impressive battery. It's not, but it's not like horrible either. Like it gets through the day. It's somewhere in between. It's acceptable. That's the best way I could put it. And that's one of the reasons why I changed my mind about my early statements about this phone, because as I used it, got used to my usage, it lasts. It's fine. Does the job. But it doesn't do what the Max does, which is overly impressed. The Max is that type of phone where you can literally push it to what its name says, to the max. You can use this thing all day heavy, and I mean heavy. Like you can push this thing and watching videos, making phone calls, messaging, camera stuff all day, like pushing the phone. You know, you can play games, download apps, order things. You're not draining it. It's not happening. So 3 months later, when it comes to the cameras, it's pretty obvious, you know, that statement of, well, you know, triple camera, single camera, case closed. I mean, duh, that's an obvious statement. I think the same way too. And when I just look at the cameras on the surface, but I want to tell you my real experience using both of these. I found myself missing this right here. I got so used to the ultra wide that I've been missing that camera a lot on the iPhone Air. The other stuff though feels like just like a luxury to have this extra zoom and more. Other than that, I don't really care too much about not having too much zoom. The Air has plenty enough for most daily tasks. It's literally just that one ultra wide that I tend to miss the most. I wouldn't even mind if Apple goes back to an ultra wide. I actually want to see that on the next Air. The front facing camera has been enjoyable on both. It's the exact same one. It's that 18 megapixel ultra wide camera on the front, and I don't see any real difference. So really, I actually am one of those people that uses ultra wide a lot, so I missed it. Other than that though, if you're not really into ultra wide photography, I think the Air does enough. I really do. For most people, it has the best camera on the center one, or on the main one, and then you do have that crop in to 10 times zoom. And the zoom actually looks better on here than it used to look on some older iPhones with telephoto cameras, just because of the software improvements and the sensor improvements. What I mean is if you take a look at the 10X on an iPhone 10, or maybe even, you know, some of the older iPhones from back in the day that max out at 10X, this probably is still going to take better looking photos than that. So the iPhone Air, I think, is acceptable in that single camera. But if you do ultra wide, it's a total no. It's a no-go if you really like your ultra wide camera. Now, when it comes to the iOS experience on both, I tend to like it more on the Air. And the reason why is because I always like when an iPhone is easier to one hand, and I find this one slightly easier to do than that, because iPhone doesn't rotate on the landscape. It doesn't do any split screen. So it really feels like a one-handed experience. It feels really mobile, and it really feels like Apple is not giving us, you know, any type of extra productivity enhancements that take advantage of the large screen. And it really irritates me on the Max, and it feels like this giant phone that doesn't take any advantage of this display. Every other phone I use does better at this, including the Pixel, the Galaxy S25 Ultra, the OnePlus phones. All of them have floating windows, split screens, you name it. Even you can't even do landscape on this. Like, I understand most people use their phone in portrait, but there's times at night when you're chilling. You just want to go in landscape. This is nearly a tablet size over here at 6.9. Let's get a landscape back. Let's get some advantage taken. I understand you do get that, you know, the message is split it side by side, the settings a little bit, but they don't do enough here to take advantage. So iOS actually feels very polished. It kind of matches up with the sleek liquid glass and the sleek design of the iPhone Air. it feels special on the Air, and it feels more designed for that type of product than the Max Large product. I do feel like they need to add enhancements to the iPhone Max to really make it feel like you're getting your money's worth in terms of the software, because it just feels like a single app at a time large phone. So that's just my gripe with it there. Other than that, they both do get themselves the same software updates. You do get the same applications. You also do get the same widgets. And not everybody has adopted iOS 26 yet, but for those of you who have, the liquid glass is definitely a change. It's definitely different. Not everybody's loving it. Some people are, some people aren't. But generally, the software has been pretty good on both. I do find it to be a little bit stuttery here and there and not always feeling 120 hertz the way I like. So they do need to focus on refinement and polish next year, I think, about making the software just faster and snappier than the competition, and more reliable too, because I feel like the competition in some respects tends to run smoother more consistently sometimes than the software on these lately anyway. So after a few months owning both, when the dust settles, when the hype is gone, what starts to annoy me between both of them? Honestly, the only thing that has annoyed me a bit with the Max is the thing I just talked about with the multitasking stuff. And I don't really love the aluminum. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not that grippy. To me, it don't feel as premium, and it's dense. So I'm not a fan of the aluminum. Honestly, I want them to go back to titanium just for a more premium feel. Even stainless steel on the Max was just absolutely gorgeous. This phone, it just doesn't do it for me all the time. I still like the two-tone look. I think that is unique. It looks a little bit different. I like the orange. They definitely need to pop out with more colors like this. That was pretty awesome. But over time, those are the few things that annoyed me with this phone. Other than that, it's been pretty phenomenal. Like a 9 or 10 out of 10 almost. The iPhone Air, after using this for a while, what's weird about this? While it is super thin and lightweight, sometimes, I'm not even kidding with you, sometimes it feels too thin. Like I don't have anywhere to grip my hand sometimes when I'm typing. It does occur occasionally where I just feel like, where's the girth to get a good grip on both sides when we're doing some two-handed typing. That's something I noticed a little bit annoying, but it's not a big deal. I'm trying to find stuff, so don't come at me. I'm nitpicking right here. I'm trying to find some frustrations that I had with this over time, because there really isn't many. The single speaker on this phone definitely is a no. I get annoyed with that immediately. I know people say, I got AirPods, bro. I don't even need the speaker. Sometimes people are over, you're hanging out, whatever. You want to throw a song on. This is not cutting it. Sometimes you want to do a speakerphone call. Your hands are full. This is not cutting it all the time. So that's a little bit frustrating with this phone. And the lack of an ultra wide has been a little bit frustrating. Other than that, not too many gripes with it. It feels beautiful. It looks innovative, feels special to hold. And actually, on the edges, looks more premium than the newer iPhone Pro Max. So definitely, I like the phone. I definitely do. I hope they keep it around. They just got to make a couple of improvements, and it's going to be an absolute winner. Over time, though, I do feel like the iPhone Max's battery is going to age better. I feel like the body and build of the iPhone Air is going to age better because titanium is a stronger metal than the aluminum. This phone will age better in the hardware, but not the battery. The battery is going to age better over here. The hardware of this, I'm just talking about the physical construction, going to age better. But the camera itself also going to age better on the Max because you have 3 of them instead of 1. So there is actually some trading things here. You've seen that are some benefits of the Air over the Max even. So at the end of the day, owning these for 3 months, you've seen how I feel about them now. I don't see this changing. I will probably update you again at 6 months. Maybe not, maybe closer to 9 months or a year. We'll see how it goes. If nothing changes, I won't do the update video. But if things start changing, I start noticing something else, I will refresh. But the real decision is, there is no real winner. The winner is the one that fits what you want more. If you've been waiting for a thin phone for a long time, lightweight, slips in the pocket, you're tired of these girthy, thick phones, this is the phone for you. You're going to really enjoy it. If you're not a big camera user, you're more into sleek, innovative looks, this is for you, for sure. And honestly, I feel a little more excited when I'm holding the iPhone Air because it just feels different. I like to be the contrarian sometimes. The iPhone 17 Pro Max over here. This one definitely is a phone that, is a safer choice. Everyone knows what it is. Big, large cameras, big body, big 6.9. And this is the one I think more people enjoy. Sales already proved that. It is the one most people are going to go with. But at the end of the day, the Air held its own, I think, overall, but it still loses to the Max. And for me right now, I need the long battery life. I'm pretty busy these days, so the battery life is the only reason I'm using the Max over the Air. But the Air is still good. And if its battery life was longer, I probably would be on it, and especially if I had the ultra wide, because I actually do use that a lot. So thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know your thoughts on the Max versus the Air, or if you're an owner of one of these and you might have traded one back, went to the store, returned it. Share us with your experience. I love to read those comments about, I had this phone, took it back, and I'm happy I went with the Air. I'm happy I went with the Max. The Air didn't work for me. The Max didn't work for me. I love to hear those comments, and they help others out as well. So drop those down below. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.